Behavioral Neuroscience, Chapter 14, Segment 1. A circadian rhythm is a pattern of behavioral, biochemical, or physiological fluctuation that has a 24-hour period. Diurnal means being active during the light periods of the daily cycle, and nocturnal means being active during the dark periods of the daily cycle. Hamsters who are nocturnal will start running on the wheel a few minutes later each day and continue through the dark period, showing a circadian rhythm of a little over 24 hours. Free running refers to a rhythm of behavior shown by an animal deprived of external cues about the time of day. A period is the interval of time between two similar points of successive cycles, such as sunset to sunset. A period can differ between individual members of the same species, showing that it is endogenous and not simply reflecting an external cue. A phase shift is a shift in the activity of a biological rhythm, typically provided by a synchronizing environmental stimulus. Entrainment is the process of synchronizing a biological rhythm to an environmental stimulus. A Zeitgeber is literally time giver in German. It is the stimulus, usually the light-dark cycle, that entrains circadian rhythms. The major value in circadian rhythms is that they synchronize behavior and body states to changes in the environment. An example is anticipating darkness and preparing for it. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN, is a small region of the hypothalamus above the optic chiasm that is the location of a circadian oscillator. Ralph and Menaker in 1988 discovered the genetic mutation tau in a male hamster who free ran at a period of 22 hours. Half of the offspring of this male also had a shorter circadian rhythm. Animals with two copies of the mutation had a 20-hour period. These animals entrained to a normal 24-hour light-dark period just fine. It was only in constant conditions that their abnormalities were shown. Hamsters who received SCN transplants showed the circadian rhythms of the donor. This is the only type of transplant known today where the recipient displays the donor's behavior. Many vertebrates have photoreceptors outside the eye that contribute to light entrainment. The pineal gland is a secretory gland in the brain midline, the source of melatonin release. It is sensitive to light in some amphibians and can entrain circadian rhythms. The skull over the pineal is thin in amphibians and birds, and this is why it is said that they have a third eye. In mammals, cells in the eye communicate with the SCN. The retinohypothalamic pathway is the projection of retinal ganglion cells to the suprachiasmatic nucleus. This pathway carries information about light to the hypothalamus to entrain behavior. Melanopsin is a photopigment found within particular retinal ganglion cells that project to the SCN. The retinal ganglion cells do not rely on rods and cones, which is why blind mice can still entrain their behavior to light. Other melanopsin-containing retinal ganglion cells project to the brainstem to control pupil diameter. Melanopsin is most sensitive to light frequencies in the blue range. Diurnal fruit flies with mutations to the PER gene were arrhythmic when transferred to constant dim light. Eventually, more genes were discovered that affect the circadian cycle in these fruit flies, and mammals were found to have one or more versions of each of them. These genes regulate each other's expression such that their protein products wax and wane in a cycle that takes about 24 hours. Cells in the SCN make two proteins, clock and cycle, BMAL1 in mammals. These two proteins bind together to form a dimer, which then binds to the cell's DNA to promote the transcription of two other genes, PER and CRY. The resulting PER-CRY proteins then dimerize and now inhibit expression of the clock cycle genes that begin the whole process. The PER-CRY proteins degrade or become chemically modified with time, lifting the inhibition and starting the whole cycle over again. The cycle takes about 24 hours to complete, and it drives the 24-hour activity cycle of SCN cells. This is how time is kept in the body and how circadian processes are driven. The same molecular clock operates in almost every cell in the body, and they are all in sync as long as the SCN is intact. A possibility is that the circadian rhythm and body temperature serves as a body-wide cue to entrain the molecular clock in all the other cells. Retinal ganglion cells in mammals detect light and release glutamate in the SCN, which triggers a chain of events and promotes the production of protein. People who feel energetic in the morning are likely to carry a different version of the clock gene than those who feel energetic at night. Different alleles per gene are also associated with being a morning lark or night owl. Infradian refers to a rhythmic biological event whose period is longer than that of a circadian rhythm, that is, longer than a day. An example is the human menstrual cycle. Annual rhythms are important for seasonal disorders of behavior. An example is mating. Circannual is a rhythm that occurs on a roughly annual basis. Circannual cycles do not arise from the circadian clock, but can be entrained by light cycles that affect how long the nightly bout of melatonin secretion lasts. Ultradian refers to a rhythmic biological event whose period is shorter than that of a circadian rhythm, usually from several minutes to several hours long.